Good morning, guys. We are still talking about physical and chemical weathering. You're going to do your Nearpod today to show me your knowledge. This is based off our live lesson yesterday. So as always, take your time, work through this, show me what you know. And I know you guys will be amazing. All right, so this is the Nearpod you should be pulling up. Physical and chemical weathering. And we'll get started. So what processes break down rocks at the Earth's surface? All right, so we're going to engage our prior knowledge. We're going to explore the national park to look for examples of weathering. All right, so before we do that, what do you guys know about two different kinds, physical and chemical weathering? Do you know a lot? Do you know a little? Or do you not know anything at all? You need to pause. You're more than welcome to pause. But we're going to keep trucking along here. What do you think causes weathering? I know on Monday's Nearpod, we gave you some examples. Tuesday's live lesson, we gave you guys some examples. So what do you think causes weathering? What's the different factors? What maybe is the different kinds of weather? Again, as always, pause if you need to. So on the next slide, you're going to visit Arches National Park in Utah. As you explore, look at the different rock formations. I love these pictures because these are real places, right? What do you think caused the rock to look like this? Because they're unusual looking. Take a look around. Aren't those some amazing, beautiful rocks? Check those out. They are crazy formations. Look at that one. There's like a hole right in the middle you can stand under. I think we know why they call this Arches National Park, right? You see all those arches? Look at how beautiful that is. That is amazing. How do you think those formed? Okay, how do you think those formed? What do you think may have caused some of the rock formations that you saw? What do you think? If we're talking about weathering, what specific type of weathering do you think caused that? If you need to pause me, feel free, but keep going. So we're going to explain how weathering can actually change the surface of the Earth and elaborate on the difference between physical and chemical weathering. All right, so I'm going to read you guys this slideshow to learn more about how the Earth's surface can change. I want you guys to, as you read, think about how the processes are different and notice how these processes create landforms. So we talked about this this week, but we're going to do it again because it's good for us, right? So weathering is a process that breaks down rock into smaller pieces called sediment. So when rock is broken down into those teeny tiny small pieces, do they stay there? No, it's called erosion. Erosion then moves the sediment from one place to another, okay? How does it move? Well, wind and water carry those sediment to other places. Deposition is the process in which the sediment is dropped. So I like to think of deposition as dropped. It's left behind, okay? Then we have, look at those canyons. Those are beautiful. So canyons are actually caused when moving water, that moving water breaks down the rock and carries it away. So weathering is a very, very slow process. It took a long time for that canyon to form. Okay, these are the arches. You see those arches are created when water or wind starts to break down. You see that hole right there? That water, the wind breaks it down and moves it, right? That erosion then will move it. So in this sea arch, the waves, that water have worn part of that rock down, leaving an arch. And then dunes, these are amazing. Sand dunes form when wind blows, right? And the sand then deposits it. Look at how cool that is. And then you have these deltas. A delta is a triangle or shaped landform. So that's actually a piece of land right there. and it's deposited at the mouth of a river. So remember, it's just like dropped there. So how are weathering and erosion similar and different? So what is weathering? Remember, that's the breaking down of rock. So that's the part that's weathering. But erosion then takes those rocks and moves them. So weathering is breaking it down. Erosion is then moving it. Okay, so tell me about the difference in your own words. If you need to pause me to get that in, go ahead and pause. So let's talk about physical weathering. So physical weathering occurs when there is a physical change to the rock. The rock looks different, right? So we're going to review the slideshow that follows to learn more about physical weathering. So think about that things that cause physical weathering. So wind, right? Wind, which would be a part of erosion, right, can carry small particles of sand in the air. The wind-blown sand can rub against rock and cause the rock to break apart. Look at that. Okay, this rubbing is called abrasion. Water, that's another part of erosion, right? Moving water can also cause abrasion. As water moves down and hits those rocks, it wears away pieces of rock. This causes rocks to become smooth and round. Temperature. So when rocks get hot, they expand or get larger. When they cool off, they contract or get smaller. So repeated expanding and contracting weaken the rock, and that allows it to be broken into pieces. So ice wedging happens when water gets into a teeny tiny crack in a rock. If the water freezes, that rock is going to expand and get bigger, right? This pushes the rock apart, cracking it. Over time, this will cause the rock to break into pieces. Plants. How many of you guys have seen this? I have it in my driveway, and I actually have it some on my pathway walking down where the roots of a tree are so strong enough to break through asphalt. Well, if they can do that, they can break through rocks, right? So the roots of plants can cause weathering. Sometimes the roots get into a crack in a rock. Then as the root grows larger, it's going to put pressure on that rock and it pushes it apart. And then lastly, animals. For instance, prairie dogs, they dig tunnels under the ground. Is that going to mess with the rocks underneath? Yes. So some animals burrow into rocks. As they dig holes, they're going to break apart the earth into smaller pieces of rock. So all of these are physical weathering, right? It's physical. It happens in the environment. Remember, we had wind, we had water, we had temperature, we had gravity. I actually accidentally skipped this. So landslides occur when large pieces of rock actually fall down a slope due to the gravity. The large pieces often break into smaller pieces. So glaciers are large sheets of frozen ice. Gravity causes glaciers to move. Rocks that are frozen in the ice scrape across the earth, breaking it into small pieces of sediment. All right, so these again are all plants and animals. These are all physical, okay? So I want you guys to complete this chart to explain how each thing or process causes physical weathering. Where do you find the answer? Here. Each slide has an answer. You do not have to write down every single word, but paraphrase it, okay? Describe how each thing in the chart causes physical weathering. How does gravity? How do plants? How do animals? How do wind, water, temperature? This is physical weathering, okay? Go ahead and pause me in order to do this. Let's talk about now chemical weathering. Physical and chemical weathering are different, okay? So chemical changes. Chemical weathering is caused by chemical changes to rock. So chemical changes result in the formation of a new material, right? So chemical weathering changes not only change the appearance of the rock, but the composition of the rock. So this limestone building shows evidence of chemical weathering. Do you see how those rocks have changes in them? So oxidation, that is a chemical, right? Reaction. Oxidation occurs when the rock combines with oxygen. So rocks that have iron in them undergo a chemical change. So water, oxygen, and iron mix together and form rust. Okay, so do you see how that's a chemical? They look, those colors, this causes the rock to have an orange color. So do you see how it changes the chemical makeup? All right. Then you have carbonation. When carbon dioxide mixes with water, it forms acid. Okay, this acid breaks down rocks as it seeps into the ground. Carbonation causes caves to form when it dissolves limestone. So the dissolved material is deposited in the cave and forms these sharp little things. Okay, it's pretty neat. Hydrolysis. So this is hydrogen can also combined with rocks to cause chemical weathering. Hydrolysis causes feldspar to change into clay. Again, a chemical change. So on the next slide, you're gonna watch a video about physical and chemical weathering. So as you watch, let's pay attention of how each type of weathering changes the Earth's surface.
The sandy beach is an example of weathering. Parts of this sand at one time was quartz that was broken apart, traveled down rivers and streams, and ended up as small as a grain of sugar. You can see changes created by chemical weathering on this 100-year-old statue. Welcome to Moo Math and Science and Weathering. Weathering of rocks is a physical or chemical change that changes the characteristics of the rocks on Earth. There are two major types. Physical weathering, which involves breaking rocks into smaller fragments caused by environmental factors, and chemical weathering, which are changes that involve rocks being changed into new substances or minerals chemically. Let's look at three major types of physical weathering: abrasion, frost wedging, and thermal stress. Abrasion is mechanical scraping and can be caused by several factors. Basically, these factors just break the rock apart. Wind, water or waves, glaciers, gravity, and even plants and animals. Frost wedging occurs as water expands as it freezes, and this can cause the rock to break apart. Thermal stress is a type of weathering where heat and changes in temperature cause the rocks to expand and contract, and this can break the rock apart. Next, let's look at chemical changes of weathering. Remember, a chemical change creates a new substance. There are three major types. First, oxidation occurs as oxygen combines with iron in the rock and creates a new compound. When iron reacts with oxygen, it forms iron oxide, commonly called rust, and this weakens the rock. Hydrolysis occurs when hydrogen or hydrate replaces the ion and creates a new substance. For example, hydrolysis causes feldspar to turn into clay. And finally, carbonation is the process of mixing water with carbon dioxide to make carbonic acid. This acid then breaks down and weakens rocks. Caves may be formed by carbonation dissolving limestone. Rainwater picks up the carbon dioxide from the air, and as it percolates through the soil, slowly dissolves out the limestone.
All right, guys. So rocks can be changed by either physical weathering or chemical weathering. So I want you guys to read the description, okay? First, read each description, then drag the description about physical weathering to the physical weathering column. Then drag descriptions about chemical weathering to the chemical weathering column. So if it's physical, drop it here. If it's chemical, drop it on the right side. If you need to pause, pause. But I want to move to the next slide. But again, now's the time to pause to go ahead and complete this activity. All right, you're gonna also now complete a 5-question quiz. This should not be difficult. Go ahead and pause in order to complete this quiz so we can see if you guys understood the material. So now is the time to pause in order to complete your quiz and take your time. Do a good job. All right, then in your own words, how are chemical and physical weathering different? In your own words, go ahead and describe. And then how confident do you feel in your ability to explain to someone the difference between physical and chemical weathering? Because I might ask you tomorrow in class, okay? And then what is the most interesting or surprising thing that you learned about physical and chemical weathering? And now you're done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. We'll be back again tomorrow to teach live. Please follow your module and your weekly schedule to get your assignments done, and we will see you soon. Bye.